The storm had no mercy. Snow fell from the black sky like sharp white knives, cutting into everything that moved. The wind screamed across the frozen land, louder than any creature, louder than fear itself. On this dead white world, nothing was meant to live for long, and yet, someone was still breathing. A small alien girl lay near the edge of a broken ice ridge. Her thin body was pressed against the hard ground, half buried under snow. Her skin was pale blue, cracked in places by the cold. Her long ears trembled with every violent wind. Her eyes, once bright, were now dull and tired. She was hugging her pet tightly against her chest. The little creature was no bigger than a small cat, with soft silver fur and a thin tail wrapped around her arm. It was shaking, weak and silent. Its tiny heart beat slowly under her frozen fingers. She pulled it closer, trying to share the last bit of warmth left in her body. The cold was winning. Her breath came out in thin white clouds. Each breath was slower than the last. Her fingers could no longer feel the fur of her pet. They felt like stone. She looked around the frozen land. Nothing moved. No ships, no lights, no voices. Only endless white. This planet was once called Varrox 9, a mining world. Long ago, many alien workers came here, digging deep into the ice for rare crystals. But the storms grew worse every year. The cold became crueler. One by one, the colonies were abandoned. She was not supposed to be here. Her transport ship had crashed during a sudden storm. The rest of her crew were gone, some taken by the cold, some lost in the snow. She never found their bodies, only her pet stayed. She lowered her head and pressed her forehead gently against the small creature. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice almost lost in the wind. "I tried." Her lips were blue. Her voice shook. The pet made a soft sound, weak and sad, and moved its head slightly. It tried to lick her frozen fingers, but its tongue was slow. She closed her eyes. Her thoughts became quiet. Memories came slowly now. Warm places, bright skies, the sound of other voices laughing. All gone. Her body no longer fought the cold. The pain faded. Only deep tiredness remained. It felt easy now to stop moving, easy to sleep. She wrapped her arms tighter around her pet, using the last strength in her body. "If I sleep," she whispered, "you sleep with me." The wind howled louder, as if the planet itself was answering her. Snow covered more of her legs, then her waist, then her shoulders. The cold was almost complete. Her eyes closed fully. Time passed, or maybe only seconds passed. It was hard to tell. Then, something changed. At first, it was only a sound. Not wind, not storm, a different sound. A deep, heavy step. Crunch. The snow moved somewhere behind her. Crunch. Another step. Her eyes slowly opened. Through the falling snow, she saw a dark shape, tall, wide, moving against the storm, not with it. She blinked, unsure if her mind was playing tricks on her. The shape came closer. Each step was slow but strong, as if the storm could not stop it. Her heart beat faster. Fear returned. She tried to move, but her body did not listen. The pet lifted its head weakly and made a tiny sound. The shape was now clear. It was not a beast. It was not a machine. It was a human. The human walked through the storm like the cold did not matter. Heavy armor covered his body. His boots broke the ice beneath each step. A dark visor hid his face, reflecting the white storm like black glass. She had heard stories about humans. They were strange. They were soft. They were weak compared to most aliens, but they were also stubborn, and they did not give up easily. Still, seeing one here, on this planet, felt impossible. The human stopped a few steps away from her. For a moment, he only looked at her. She could not read his face behind the visor, but she felt something in his silence. Not fear, not anger. Concern. Slowly, carefully, the human knelt down in the snow. His movements were calm, like he was afraid to scare her. She tried to speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The human reached toward her, then paused, as if asking for permission. She did not pull away. His gloved hands touched her shoulder, gently. Warmth. Not much, but enough for her to feel it. Her eyes widened. The human quickly removed a thick thermal cloak from his back and wrapped it around both her and the pet. The heavy fabric blocked the wind. The storm's scream became quiet. For the first time in hours, silence. Real silence. She looked up at him, her eyes weak but full of questions. Human, she whispered. The human said nothing. He only nodded once. Then he lifted her carefully in his arms, as if she was made of glass. The world spun slowly around her as he stood. The storm still raged. The planet was still deadly, but now she was no longer alone. And far away in the frozen dark, the planet seemed to wait, because this was not just a rescue. It was the beginning of something the galaxy was not ready for. The human carried her through the storm like the cold did not touch him. Snow hit his armor again and again, but he did not slow down. Each step broke the ice under his boots, leaving deep marks behind him. The wind tried to push him back, but he moved forward. Strong and steady, the alien girl lay in his arms, barely awake. The thermal cloak wrapped around her, and her pet blocked most of the wind. The warmth was weak, but real. For the first time since the crash, her body did not shake without control. She looked up at the human's faceplate. Dark, reflective, silent. She wondered, was he real, or just a dream made by a dying mind? The pet moved slightly and made a soft sound. The human looked down at the small creature. A small smile formed under his helmet, though she could not see it. Soon the storm began to fade, not fully, but enough. Ahead through the falling snow, a dark shape appeared. A shelter. Not a ship, not a city. Just a small human survival unit, half buried in ice. The human walked toward it quickly. With one hand, he opened the heavy metal door. Cold air rushed inside, but the wind could not follow. He stepped in and closed it behind him. For a moment, everything was quiet, real quiet. The only sound was her weak breathing and the tiny heartbeat of her pet. Inside the shelter, soft orange lights turned on slowly. The human laid her down on a simple bed made from metal and thick fabric. He placed the pet gently beside her, close to her chest. She tried to speak again. Her voice came out broken. Why? Here. The human removed his helmet. His face was pale from the cold, but his eyes were calm and focused. He had short dark hair and a small scar near his eyebrow. I was sent to search, he said simply. Not for crystals, not for machines. For life. She blinked. Life? She whispered. Yes, he answered. Most species avoid this planet now. Too cold, too dangerous. But humans go where others stop. He moved to a small console and pressed a few buttons. The shelter warmed slowly. The air became easier to breathe. She felt it. Her fingers moved again, slowly, painfully. But they moved. The human turned back to her. What is your name? He asked gently. She hesitated, then said, Lyra. My name is Aaron, he replied. The pet lifted its head and looked at him. Aaron reached into a pack and took out a small food block. He broke off a tiny piece and placed it carefully in front of the pet. The creature sniffed it. Then slowly, it ate. Lyra watched in silence. No fear. No force. Only patience. You saved us, Lyra said quietly. Aaron shook his head. You were alive already, he said. I just refused to let the cold finish the job. Outside, the storm howled again, hitting the shelter walls hard. Lyra flinched. Aaron looked toward the metal door. This world is not empty, he said, and the storm is not the only danger here. Lyra's eyes widened. What else lives here? She asked. Aaron did not answer immediately. Instead, He walked to a small screen on the wall and turned it on. The image showed something moving under the ice, huge, slow, and hunting. Lyra's heart skipped. Aaron spoke softly but firmly. This planet kills quietly, but sometimes it hunts loudly. Outside the shelter, something deep and heavy moved beneath the frozen ground. The ice cracked slightly, and whatever lived below now knew they were here. The shelter shook softly as the storm hit its walls. Lyra sat on the narrow bed, wrapped in the thermal cloak, holding her pet close. The small creature was warmer now, breathing slowly and calmly. For the first time in many hours, fear did not control her heart, but the image on the screen still burned in her mind. Something big, moving under the ice. She looked at Aaron. "You said the storm is not the only danger," she said quietly. "What was that thing?" Aaron stood near the wall, checking his equipment. His movements were slow and careful, like he had done this many times before. "This planet has deep life," he said. "Creatures that live below the ice. They feel heat. They feel movement, and they do not like visitors." Lyra tightened her hold on the pet. "Then why are you here?" she asked. "Why would a human come to a place like this alone?" Aaron looked at her for a moment, then he smiled slightly. "Because humans were never meant for easy worlds," he said. "We were born on a planet that tried to kill us every day." Lyra blinked. Aaron walked to a small heater and placed his bare hand near it, testing the warmth. His skin was red from cold, and scars were visible across his fingers. "Our world had storms," he continued. "Fire from the sky, shaking ground. Frozen lands, burning lands. And yet, we stayed." He turned back to her. "Other species look for perfect worlds," he said. "Humans learn to live in broken ones." Lyra listened quietly. She had studied humans in school. They were listed as average strength, average intelligence, low survival rating in extreme zones. But this human stood here calmly on a frozen death world. Something about the records felt wrong. Outside, a deep sound rolled through the ice. Like the slow breath of something very large, the pet made a small, frightened sound. Aaron moved closer to the door and listened. Then he spoke without fear. "That creature will not break in," he said. "Not tonight." "How do you know?" Lyra asked. Aaron tapped the side of the shelter. "This unit has no strong heat leak," he replied. "And humans learned long ago how to hide from things bigger than them." Lyra stared at him. "You speak like this is normal for you," she said. Aaron laughed softly. "For humans, danger becomes normal." He walked to a small table and took out a cup of steaming liquid. He offered it to Lyra. She hesitated. "Drink slowly," he said. "It will help your body fight the cold." She took the cup with shaking hands. The warmth touched her lips and moved through her body, like light through darkness. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she looked at Aaron differently now, not as a strange human, but as something stronger. "You are not afraid," she said. Aaron shrugged. "Fear is fine," he replied. "But letting fear stop you, that is not human." The shelter shook again, harder this time. Something passed beneath them. Lyra gasped. Aaron calmly placed his hand on the wall, feeling the movement. "Just passing," he said. "How can you be so calm?" she asked. Aaron looked at her and spoke softly. "Because if humans panic every time the universe growls at them, we would never leave our home world." Silence returned. Only the soft hum of the heater filled the air. Lyra looked down at her pet. "It was asleep now, peaceful. You could have ignored my distress signal," she said. "Many ships did." Aaron nodded. Double quotes, "Yes," he said. "But humans don't measure risk the same way others do. We don't ask only, 'Can I survive?' We also ask, 'Can someone else survive if I go?'" Lyra's eyes slowly filled with tears, not from cold, from something deeper. She looked at him and whispered, You came for strangers, Aaron smiled. No, he said. I came for life. Outside, the storm continued its endless dance. The ice creature still moved below Dot, but inside this small shelter on a dead world. An alien and a human shared warmth, Dot, and somewhere far away in the galaxy, the rules about who was weak and who was strong were quietly beginning to change. The storm outside did not stop. The ice still cracked far below the shelter, but inside, something new had begun. Lyra sat quietly on the bed, watching her small pet sleep. Its silver fur moved softly with each breath. For the first time since the crash, it was not shaking, not crying, not afraid. She gently touched its head, warm, alive. She looked at Aaron, who was cleaning his gear in silence. You gave it food, she said softly. Not many would do that. Aaron looked up. To humans, he replied, small life matters just as much as big life. Lyra lowered her eyes. On my world, she said, pets are seen as weak things, easy to replace. They told me it was foolish to bring one on a mission. Aaron stopped moving for a moment. Then he walked closer and sat near her. We had that thinking once too, he said. But humans learned something important. How we treat the smallest life shows who we really are. The pet slowly opened its eyes. It lifted its head and looked at Aaron. Its body tensed slightly. Lyra held her breath. Slowly, carefully, cavalierly. Aaron reached his hand toward it. Not fast. Not sudden. Just enough to be seen. The pet did not move away. Instead, it sniffed his fingers. Then, to Lyra's shock, it took one small step closer. And another. It touched Aaron's hand with its nose. Aaron smiled. He gently scratched under its chin. The pet closed its eyes again. It liked it. Lyra's eyes widened. That creature has feared every being since the crash, she whispered. Even me sometimes. Aaron said nothing. He only continued to gently touch it. The shelter suddenly shook. Again, harder than before. The pet jumped back in fear. Lyra gasped. Aaron stood up instantly and moved between Lyra and the door. His body became still. Alert. Ready. A deep sound rolled through the ice beneath them. Not passing this time. The creature was close. Lyra felt her heart race. Aaron turned to her and spoke calmly. Stay here, no matter what. What will you do? She asked. Aaron reached for a weapon. On the wall. It was not large. Not powerful looking, just simple. I will remind this world, he said, that humans do not surrender their people. Lyra stared at him. You barely know me, she said. Aaron looked back. Humans do not need long to decide who is worth protecting. The ground shook again. Ice cracked loudly. The pet cried out. Lyra grabbed it tightly. Aaron stood firm near the door, watching the wall. Then, the shaking stopped. Silence fell again. Long. Heavy. Aaron slowly lowered the weapon. He did not relax, but he allowed himself one slow breath. It has moved away, he said quietly. Lyra felt her knees weaken. She sat back down. Her heart was still racing. Aaron walked back and knelt in front of her. You did well, he said. You stayed calm. She looked at him. I was not calm, she replied. I was terrified. Aaron smiled gently. That is what being calm looks like for most humans too. She almost laughed. Almost. The pet looked up at Aaron again and walked closer this time. Without fear. It sat near his boots, like it had chosen him. Lyra stared at it. Trusts you, she said in surprise. Aaron shrugged. Animals know when someone will not harm them, he replied. Lyra felt something deep in her chest. Not fear, not cold. Something warm. Something new. In that moment, she realized something important. This human was not just strong, not just brave. He was kind. And in the dark universe, kindness was rarer than strength. Outside, the storm still ruled the frozen world, but inside that small shelter, a fragile bond had formed between an alien, her pet, and a human who walked through ice to save them, and the galaxy would one day learn that sometimes the smallest life creates the biggest change. The silence did not last long. A deep, heavy sound rolled through the ground again, stronger than before. The shelter lights flickered. Small pieces of ice fell from the ceiling. Lyra froze. The pet cried out and hid in her arms. Aaron turned toward the metal door slowly, his body already tense. This time he said quietly, "It is not just passing." The ground shook harder. Loud crack echoed beneath them. Then another. The ice world itself was breaking. Lyra felt fear rush through her body like fire. "What is happening?" she asked, her voice shaking. Aaron did not answer. He was listening. Then, suddenly, boom! The wall behind the shelter burst outward in a storm of ice and snow. A massive shape pushed through. It was huge. Its body was covered in thick frozen plates like armor. Its eyes glowed pale blue. Steam rose from its mouth as it breathed the cold air. The ice creature had found them. The pet screamed. Lyra held it tightly and backed away, her body pressed against the far wall. Aaron stood between them and the monster. He did not scream. He did not run. He raised his simple weapon, not advanced, not shining, just human. The creature roared, shaking the shelter with its voice. Aaron took one slow step forward. "Not them," he said firmly. "Take me." The monster charged. The ground shook with every step it took. Lyra closed her eyes. She thought it was over, but then a loud blast filled the shelter. Aaron fired. The shot hit the creature's frozen armor and cracked it. Ice flew into the air like glass. The beast roared in pain. It stopped, not dead, but surprised. It had never been hurt before. Aaron moved fast. He rolled to the side as the creature slammed its claws into the floor, missing him by inches. Ice shattered where he had been standing. Lyra watched in shock. This was not the weak human she had learned about. This was something else. Aaron ran forward, jumped onto a broken ice slab, and fired again. This time, the shot hit near the creature's eye. The beast screamed loudly and stepped back, but it was still alive, still angry. It swung its massive tail. The shelter wall exploded. Cold air rushed inside. Snow filled the room. Again, Lyra screamed as the wind hit her. Aaron turned and shouted, "Stay behind me." The creature lunged again. Aaron dropped his weapon and grabbed the metal rod from the broken wall. No shield, no armor upgrade, only raw wool. As the monster came close, Aaron jumped forward and drove the rod into a crack in the creature's icy armor. The beast howled in pain and pulled back. Black blood spilled onto the white ice for the first time. The ice world bled. The monster looked at Aaron with fear. Now, not hunger, not anger, fear. Slowly, the massive creature stepped back, then another step, then it turned and disappeared into the storm. Silence followed, only the sound of wind and Lyra's heavy breathing filled the broken shelter. Aaron stood still for a moment, then he slowly dropped to one knee. Exhausted. Breathing hard. Lyra ran to him with her pet still in her arms. "You are hurt," she cried. Aaron looked at his arm. Blood ran down from a deep cut, but he smiled. "Nothing important," he said. "The important part is, you're safe." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. "You fought it alone," she said. Aaron nodded slowly. "That is what humans do," he replied. "When something threatens our people, we stand." Lyra looked at the broken walls, the storm outside, the monster's blood on the ice. And then at the human in front of her. In that moment, she understood. Humans were not just survivors, they were protectors. And the ice world had learned something that day. Even the coldest planet cannot freeze the fire inside a human heart. The storm did not stop, but the shelter still stood. Broken, cold, yet alive. Lyra sat beside Aaron, wrapping a cloth tightly around his wounded arm. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were steady now. "You should not move," she said. Aaron smiled weakly. "I have moved in worse," he replied. The pet rested near his feet, watching him closely, as if guarding him now. Hours passed, then a sound came from the sky, not wind, not storm, a deep, powerful hum. Lyra looked up suddenly. "Ships," she whispered. Through the cracked ceiling, lights cut through the snow. Large shapes descended from the clouds. Rescue vessels from the nearby systems had finally arrived, drawn by the long-lost distress signal. The doors of the shelter burst open as alien rescue teams rushed inside. They froze, not because of the cold, but because of what they saw: a human, bleeding, standing between a fragile alien girl and the deadliest planet they knew. One of the commanders stepped forward, his eyes wide. "You survived here, alone?" he asked Aaron slowly. Aaron shrugged. "Not alone," he said, glancing at Lyra and her pet. "With friends." The aliens looked at Lyra in shock. "This world kills within minutes," another officer said. "How did you live?" Lyra spoke. Before Aaron could answer, "He came," she said simply. "He walked through the storm. He fought the ice itself." Silence fell. The rescue team exchanged looks. Humans were known as traders, engineers, explorers. But warriors unfrozen. Death worlds? This was new. They escorted Lyra and Aaron onto a rescue ship. The warmth inside made Lyra almost cry. The pet curled up safely in her arms, finally peaceful. As the ship lifted off, Lyra looked back at the frozen planet. Once a grave, now a memory. Inside the medical bay, doctors worked quickly on Aaron's wounds. Alien medics whispered to each other while scanning his body. "His species should not be able to survive such cold," one said. And yet, he walked through it. News spread quickly, across ships, across systems, across the stars. A human had fought the ice world, and won. On distant worlds, aliens watched the recordings. A human standing against a giant ice beast. A human protecting a weak alien child. A human refusing to fall. Councils gathered, commanders spoke. For the first time, the galaxy asked a new question. What if humans were not weak? What if humans were unstoppable? Lyra stood by a large window, watching stars pass by. "You changed everything," she said quietly to Aaron. Aaron smiled gently. "I only did what any human would," he replied. She shook her head. "No," she said. "You showed the galaxy something it forgot. That strength is not in size, but in the heart." The pet jumped lightly onto Aaron's lap. He laughed softly. "I think your friend agrees." The ship moved faster, away from the frozen death world. But the story of what happened there would never leave the galaxy. Because now, whenever a world seemed too dangerous, whenever hope seemed too small, someone would remember. A human once walked into a storm, and the storm stepped aside. The galaxy did not forget the frozen world. It spoke about it in quiet rooms and loud halls, in councils, in schools, in stories told to young explorers before their first journey. A human had walked into death and returned with life. Lyra now lived on a warm world, far from the endless ice. The skies there were blue and wide, and soft wind moved through silver trees. The cold was only a memory now, but she remembered everything. She remembered the storm, the silence, the moment she hugged her pet, ready to fade away, and then the human who came through the snow. She stood on a balcony, holding her pet close. It was strong now. Its fur shined under the sunlight. It no longer feared the world. Just like her. A message appeared on her wrist device. It was from Aaron. He was leaving on another mission. Another dangerous world. Another impossible place. She smiled softly. Humans never stayed still. Later that day, Lyra visited a small hall built in honor of the rescue. It was not large, not grand. Just simple. At its center stood a single image, a human standing in the storm, with an alien child and a small pet behind him. Below it were simple words. He stood when the universe tried to break them. Visitors from many species came there. Some touched the wall. Some bowed their heads. Others simply stood in silence. A group of young aliens stood nearby, listening to a guide. Why is this human special? One asked. The guide replied calmly, he is not special because he was human. He is special because he chose to care. That was what changed everything. Not the weapon, not the strength, not the armor. The choice. Far away, Aaron walked across. Another harsh land, a desert world this time. Burning sand instead of ice. Different danger. Same purpose. He stopped for a moment and looked up at the sky. He remembered Lyra. He remembered the pet shaking in her arms. And he remembered why humans traveled into places others avoided. Not to conquer, not to rule, but to protect. The stars above him were bright. The universe was vast. And yet, a single human could still make it feel smaller. Kinder. Stronger. Back on Lyra's world, she knelt beside her pet and whispered softly, "You saved me," she said. The pet made a small sound and nuzzled her hand. She smiled. "No," she corrected. Gently, he showed us how to save ourselves. As the sun slowly set behind the silver trees, light filled the sky with gold and red. And somewhere in the endless dark between stars, the story continued to travel, a story of cold and storm, of fear and hope. And of a simple truth the galaxy would never forget. In the coldest place in the universe, humanity burned brightest.